Well, with the merger of WWE and UFC, of course, the Endeavor deal with TKO, it was inevitable when we saw last Friday over 100 WWE employees lost their jobs. And we thought ourselves, would the talent roster be affected? It felt inevitable that it was going to happen. Yes, mass WWE releases. Breaking news for you. There were 9 names earlier today released. There are NXT names breaking as we speak. So we are going online probably at a time where perhaps a lot of people will be looking out for outlets of where new names are being released, and we will give them to you here as soon as we get them. Of course, all names will be verified before we do announce them on air as well. Thank you, everyone has joined us here today. I'm joined by the one and only NXSteve in the house, and NXSteve, just before we go through the names, it's a very shocking day, unfortunately. It's obviously very sad to see many people losing their jobs.
Yeah, it was. The thing was, I think I've said it for a couple of weeks now. We've said on a few live streams that it's been inevitable. It's been coming. It's a case of it's that time of year again where WWE just obviously announced their new TV deal with USA for SmackDown, and it is just an unfortunate time. But I won't lie to you. From the ones that have been released, this isn't like the most shocking and controversial releases we've ever had from WWE over the last couple of years. So that's the only blessing I think I can say. Like I remember before when they released Keith Lee, and you're like, and Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman, and at the time you're like, I don't know how, but I can understand with a lot of these guys, none of them have been on TV for some considerable amount of time, except for maybe one who was actually supposed to be having a match on NXT No Mercy. But I have a strong feeling that a lot of them will go on to do better things in other companies.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. As you mentioned one thing off the start there, off the bat, a lot of people there have not been on TV as of late. So that could be a contribution as to why perhaps a lot of them were released. Like you said, other times we've seen people that have been profitable on WWE and actually being used quite heavily, and then also getting released. If you hang on a top name, a top guy, it's still very sad regardless. People are obviously looking, living their dreams, if you will, being in the company that they probably wanted to be in for their entire life. It's the pinnacle, after all, WWE. It's the place to be. It's just thankful, though, that outside of WWE these days, there is a market and there's so many more companies to go to that you can make a living and arguably make a better go of it for yourself. You look at the likes of like a Matt Cardona, for example, who's gone and thrived himself. The king of the indies he's seen these days with the amount of championships he's got, really made the most of it since his release in 2020. So this may be the beginning for some people, but let's go through some of the names then for you. In fact, all of the names that we have to this point. So Mustafa Ali is, of course, the one you're referring to. Of course, he was the first one released today. Of course, he's meant to be a part of No Mercy next week. He was going to be on Monday Night Raw this upcoming week as well. That clearly is not going to be happening anymore. We'll see what happens with the North American Championship as that comes through. Dolph Ziggler is another name as well. Big high-profile name, you could say. He's been with the company for very many years. Shelton Benjamin, we only watched him on a watch long last night, saying how incredible this guy is. And unfortunately, he's not been on TV for a while now. Another one of those WWE free agents, the first 3 names, they're all free agents that kind of could have been going to any show and obviously weren't used on any of them. Dolph Ziggler and Shelton Benjamin, to be precise. Elias, there's been rumors that were going around his contract had expired anyway, but of course, still very sad to see him go. Rick Boogs, of course, being another one, master of the guitars there. Aliyah has been released from WWE. Of course, she's not been seen, of course, since losing the Women's Tag Team Championships nearly a year ago. One part of Hit Row, Top Dolla, has been released. There's no word on the other members of Hit Row at this point, but Top Dolla sadly getting the axe for the second time from WWE. Emma, of course, also getting the axe, along with Riddick Moss, who seems to have taken it very well, by the way, Riddick Moss. Emma, of course, realizing this on the same day that WWE announced they were going to do a PLE in Australia in February, which we'll be talking about later in the video as well. This is some more of the breaking news than some of the NXT ones, or some main roster ones still as well, but it seems to be a few of the NXT ones. Dana Brooke being the top of the list there. We've got Mace and Mansoor, of course, or Mansoir, Marseille. Of course, those two were together, of course, with the Maximum Male Models, no longer with WWE. Bryson Montana, Dabba Kato, we've seen Shanky, and Quincy Miller I've seen written down, but of course, better known perhaps as Quincy Elliott. So that's all the names that we have at this present time. We will go into our chat very quickly. We've got quite a few people that have come into us already. We've got RA9 Gamer in the house. Hope you're doing well. Marcel in house as well. Thank you all for saying hi. WrestleBoom as well. Several players in-house are hoping that Dolph Ziggler will be AEW bound. We're talking about Dolph Ziggler and where we think we could have a similar opinion there, Temple. Spoiler alert at this point. But at the same time, we got Wrestler who says it's crazy how Emma and Top Dollar got released. They recently got rehired. Now they are fired again. Of course, that is a sad part to see as well. We've got here C Nation saying that Dolph Ziggler being a shock, as well with Mustafa Ali also having a North American Championship match. Potentially was Top Dollar released for that botch. It certainly gave Michael Cole a lot of material. So I don't know if it would be necessary by that. But also, again, most returns by Triple H have been released already. Pointless returns, or sadly, perhaps not booked well returns. That's perhaps maybe the way it will be. But Ed Fries is saying, sorry, just jumping in. Ed Fries, welcome to the stream. I know you've been very busy today, keeping up with everything going on. Today, you've been a part of Tom Collier's stream as well. And of course, here, just going with the news reports as we were just going on now. Of course, the news there from Fightful saying Shanky, Dabba, Kato, Dana Brooke, Massey, and Mansoor, or Mason Mansoor, depending on what you prefer, is going to be the case. Obviously, we will not be speculating other names that could be released. So if you do put in names that have not been released, we will not discuss them on the stream, just to let people know actually, but if they put those names in on the comments, they will not be brought up. But asking if this is a Q&A video, just a topic video, kind of a mix, really. Obviously, we're giving our take, our point of view, but certainly get involved with your point of view. We are happy to put them on the screen. Like I say, of course, we also ask everyone to be mindful as well. People have just lost their job. Well,
just a heads up, apparently another one's come up, Yulisa Leone.
Oh, really?
One of the female talents. Apparently that's just come up on Wrestle Talk, but I have yet to see anything from anyone else. But I very much doubt Wrestle Talk would put out a fake name. But yeah, that one's just come up as well.
Well, I know they were very careful on their live stream earlier on, trying to make sure everything was verified before doing so. So I imagine they would be, there with the curve. But that's one name, of course, coming from them. You imagine we'll keep an eye for when Sean Ross Sapp or anyone else, of merit or note will put it out. Of course, some of the wrestlers have broke the news themselves as well, but it's a shame that a lot of these people have. But as we said earlier on, there are plenty of places to go out and work. Obviously, you've got AEW, which is a viable contender, a competitor now, national television as well, so you never know, could be a spot waiting open for them. We've got the likes of Impact Wrestling, New Japan, NWA, obviously AEW has Ring of Honor as well, and of course the indie scene, GCW, plenty of others now to make a good, healthy living. NXSteve, I feel like you've got some more news for me. You're looking up right now.
No. I'm literally just trying to look, like, constantly refreshing Twitter and opening just like links and constantly to see if stuff's been updated. But at the minute, no, nothing at the minute. Nothing more has been added, just apart from Yulisa Leone at the minute.
Okay, there we go. Well, I tell you what, in the meantime, let's go through some of the names and just discuss our thoughts, our feelings. Chat, feel free to join in as well. And please make sure to hit the like button on the video as well. And make sure, if you're new, maybe subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content at this early stage. I know it's kind of hard to enjoy these particular kinds of videos, but there is more pleasant content that's on this channel as well for you to go and check out, and it will be on the way. And of course, I would say your comments are very important, helping the algorithm of while we're live on YouTube. But NXT, without further ado, let's start off then with Mustafa Ali. You mentioned already he was supposed to be a part of the No Mercy show, #1 contender for NXT's North American Championship. He had been finally debuting that new character that he'd wanted to have for the longest time. However, it was no secret. He'd made it quite publicly clear that he's wanted out of WWE in the contract for quite some time. Perhaps maybe this could have been, speculation. Maybe it could be something that Ali still wanted at this stage. We'll never know. But he has put the tweet out. He was, I think, ahead of the curve, really. The first day to put a tweet out, get ahead of everyone, said that he's no longer with WWE. And he said that, from this point, he's actually excited for the future. So I'm guessing the shackles will be off for Mustafa Ali, and I imagine he'll be someone that would be in very high demand.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually probably most excited for Mustafa Ali to see where he goes, because we've been saying all day, like, just sort of trying to work out where we think he'd be best suited to. And I think that guy is going to go straight to the moon, leaving WWE. Like, we all know that a couple of months ago he asked for his release. It wasn't granted. He obviously went down to NXT. He was given this North American shot. So we're sitting there thinking maybe he's, there's a change of pace here. Maybe he can win the North American Championship, do something with that, and have a decent run in NXT, and then I guess it was a case of that they probably knew he was never going to re-sign a new contract. So I think for WWE, he was just trying to obviously get ahead of the curve with this one for the point that when his contract will actually come up. Just seems a bit silly that you would book him in an NXT title match and then release him 2 weeks before the pay-per-view. I think that's probably the most stupid thing. But I think they've already led on with NXT this week that's probably going to be replaced by Trick Williams by the looks of it from what the creatives they've done on NXT. But I'm really excited for Mustafa Ali. I think, me personally, I think if he goes to Impact, I think that guy's got all the potential to be world champion there. I think if the likes of Rich Swann, who I personally think doesn't have the greatest character work at the time when he left WWE, then goes on to Impact, becomes their world champion, I think Mustafa Ali is destined to go to Impact and become one of their next world champions.
I mean, to be fair, it's certainly a destination that could be possible. Like I said, I think the doors will be open for him wherever he could probably choose or want to go. Blake Christian was very quick out the gate, the GCW champion there, actually suggesting of having a match with Mustafa Ali. So you can imagine the demand is there, and obviously people will want to work with someone that's extremely talented like Mustafa Ali, who many would argue or would say that he's been held back probably in his role in WWE. That he was that guy that when you look at him, he came in with a real blaze of glory when he came to the main roster. He'd done some fantastic work on 205 Live. Probably was one of the main reasons I personally watched that show, watching his backstage stuff that he did when he did like his promo work that was sort of like on the streets of Chicago and stuff. When he then have his fantastic matches with the likes of Buddy Murphy. Of course, we say Cedric Alexander being another one there. He did some great stuff on 205 Live. Coming up, obviously, was, looked like he could be challenging Daniel Bryan if at one point until Kofi Mania took off. He got an injury, of course, from that point. And then obviously he wasn't a part of WrestleMania 35. Then he was expected to win Money in the Bank, of course. So that was the heavy favorite going into that match, of course. Just when it looked like he was going to win it, that was a point then when, of course, Brock Lesnar came out and we had Brock in the bank instead. Of course, everyone enjoyed a Brock party, but what about Mustafa Ali? Dare I mention the words retribution? I'll try not to. Unfortunately, it was a stable that never was destined to work. Go on.
He was the best part of Retribution.
I mean, that was literally the sentence that was about to come out of my mouth. This guy, without Mustafa Ali, this would have been even worse. He made this bearable, put it that way. It's the creative that was wrong with that, not Mustafa Ali in his direction. And of course, since then, obviously, like you said, that's when it's the starting of where he's probably wanted to leave WWE. He's come in and out and done bit parts here and there. But of course, with he's running NXT recently, I must admit, I've been quite interested in the character work of Mustafa Ali, and I'm very disappointed to see him leave. Personally, for me, obviously, I think towards the end of the video, we'll go through some of the names and we can speculate where they will go next. I think that's what we'll look to do. But you mentioned Impact. I mean, I think anywhere could be possible for him. Best of Super Juniors for New Japan, for example, would be fascinating to watch.
That's the reason why I would suggest Impact, is so he could go on to New Japan, do Best of Super Juniors, because I think that's it's a great link there.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't be surprised if All Elite Wrestling were come knocking on the door. They imagine him going for the International Championship, for example. A title has been very prestigious over the last sort of year or so with Orange Cassidy, what he's done with that championship. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see that in the future. But we're going to pick out selected comments at this particular moment. We won't go through all the comments, but thanks for with the Impact comments, but we'll try and get to them later in the stream. Ed Fry says, but for some of the people, of course, that lost their jobs today, visas could be very problematic to getting a new job, which is an excellent point. Obviously, you need to be working from this particular point. Of course, there are 90-day non-compete clauses for the main roster talent. I guess for NXT talent, it will be 30-day non-compete clauses. But of course, depending on where you are from in the world, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you'll be able to get into another promotion. So, Ed Fries, we do take that on board. It's a very well-worded comment. We'll move on in the meantime, and we're going to talk about Dolph Ziggler. This one was a bit of a surprise for me. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a case of, like I said to you earlier, that I just feel that he's kind of just been doing the same thing for years now, and his gimmick's not really changed. He's kind of almost been the sort of like the front gate, like to the main roster. Like when you come into the main roster, Dolph Ziggler is your initial feud, and it just felt like that for years. Still one of the greatest workers in the company, like was able to put everyone over, and I think that's what everyone loved about him. but he's had some great moments. Obviously, his historic cash-in to win the World Heavyweight Championship as well. But yeah, just a solid out and out worker. But like I said, the guy hasn't been on TV for, I couldn't even tell you the last time I saw him. But it's it's a sad day, man. Like, do you know what I mean? When you think of WWE and you think of the furniture, he's almost like one of the pieces that's just consistently been there for God knows how long now, like probably 15 years.
I mean, it feels like that. I mean, obviously, he's done well since starting in the Spirit Squad. Nikki, you know, when you look back to the old days of their youth, you wouldn't think it'd go well for him. But obviously, he went from the Spirit Squad to being Dolph Ziggler. And of course, you know, first of all, he's introducing himself for many years, but for many months. And then obviously, he broke through after that point and became a mid-card champion. Had some great rivalries, likes of Kofi Kingston, like you say, in 2012, won Money in the Bank, finally got the opportunity to be the show-off, really a standout. And to be fair, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, was my favorite wrestler at that point. Dolph Ziggler for me was untouchable, and I think that, like you say, winning that World Heavyweight title the night after WrestleMania 29, that's one of my favorite moments watching as a pro wrestling fan. It certainly is one of the best cash-ins of all time. But of course, unfortunately, from there for Dolph, it's always been a bit hit and miss at that point. Obviously, the injury came at the worst time for him. I think it was concussion based at that moment. Of course, with Alberto Del Rio, then of course winning the championship back, and Dolph never really got a sniff at the world title for many years. And of course, if he wants to, it was always a losing effort. And like you said, he kind of became a part of the furniture. I had seen some say a bit of speculation going around because obviously his brother's in AEW, and he did actually put a post out saying that him and Dolph would win the tag team titles in AEW. So initially, you think immediately there is a path for Dolph if he wants to continue. I imagine All Elite Wrestling would be the one he would go to, and of course, a steady set of hands. You know what you're getting with Dolph. He's a fantastic worker, like you said. He's still arguably one of the best workers in the company.
Yeah, like I said, it's just one of the most solid, consistent wrestlers that you could possibly have on a roster. I think as well, he was recently on an episode of Being the Elite as well. I think there was one segment where his brother was doing a segment on there, and I think Dolph was actually in it. So who knows? But yeah, it almost seems like that's the where he's destined to go. I mean, you can't go wrong with AEW taking Dolph Ziggler, quality wrestler. It's just a shame. Really. Like I said, he's just one of them guys that you ever needed someone to come in and do a job and put someone over. He was just one of the guys, and there isn't many people like him. Like him and the Miz, I suppose, are kind of like the two main guys that if you want someone to come in and do the job for someone, those were the two guys.
It was indeed, and of course, like we say, he was part of the furniture, and that's why I just felt Ziggler would stick around. I didn't think him as a name that would be potentially on that list, but of course, he has been a free agent since the WWE draft, where he could kind of go where he wanted, but he's not really been anywhere. So I guess at the same time, you've not been on TV. I guess that puts the writing on the wall. But still, very sad to see. Anyway, with Dolph Ziggler no longer being with WWE, but hopefully, like we say, with all the talents that have lost their job today, hopefully. The future will be bright. There is plenty of places that there is to work, and hopefully, if there isn't visa issues, as Ed mentioned earlier, fingers crossed, everything will be hopefully still very bright for these guys and girls going forward. But let's go into the chat very quickly. Pierre says, hi guys, most shocking of all these are Shelton, Dolph and Dana in Pierre's opinion. Certainly quite a number of those names have taken me by surprise today, but we'll be going through all of them, and Eric has gone through some of the names there for us there. And all I can say, Eric, yes, all the names currently are on the bottom ticker there. So if you're coming new into this video and thinking, well, who are the people that have been released? You're just talking about this person this particular time. They are all going across the ticker at the bottom there. You can keep up to date with everyone that has been released today, sadly. Ed Fry says 1,500 matches in WWE for Dolph Ziggler just goes to show how much he was there and how much he's been stable for the company for so long. C Nation's put a comment in there. C Nation, I'm gonna have to disagree with there. This isn't to provide other people coming back. This is a decision that WWE has made with people that are being let go. There are other people that are also coming into the company, not just Nia Jax. So we can't put any blame on other superstars that are coming in. They're just there. They've been hired to go and do a job. And also, Nia may have been around for quite a while. We don't know. She's just come back to TV. She wasn't even part of the Royal Rumble earlier this year. But we'll move on in the meantime. And as I say, we won't be bringing a lot of those sorts of comments up for the rest of the stream. But we're going to talk about someone that we watched on a watch along last night, and we explained how great he is. Unfortunately, though, he's now probably at the latter stage of his career, but certainly has done great stuff in recent years. He was one member of the Hurt Business. Of course, we're talking about Shelton Benjamin, sadly no longer with WWE, but a great veteran.
Yeah, it's strange that you sit here and watch something the day before and the day later the guy is no longer employed. It's like, it's just weird when that kind of stuff happens. But yeah, Shelton Benjamin, I mean, again, just another consistently solid worker. Never really reached the heights of what he achieved the first time round when he was like a multi-time Intercontinental Champion. I mean, obviously he did get a tag team run with Cedric Alexander, which was always a plus. I think he's one that's fallen a victim to creative, really, because let's be honest, no one ever really wanted the Hurt Business to break up, and that's kind of where it all went wrong. They tried doing a stint where it was just Cedric and Shelton as a tag team, but WWE just never seemed to have faith in the pair of them working like that. So he's had some decent stuff, and like I said to you earlier, I'm glad that he had his send-off a couple of months ago when he was able to get on a mic on Sunday Night Heat. I think it was Sunday Night Heat. And he said thank you, and he said thank you to the crowd because he wasn't too sure how much longer he'd be around for. So, like I said, I'm glad of the few people that's got a send off, he was one of the few.
Would it be main event by any chance? Just to ask.
That's possibly, yeah. Sunday Night Heat. This is how old I am, man.
We're watching too much retro stuff these days. That's what it comes down to. But I have to agree. No, I agree with everything you just said there. Shelton, obviously, a great standout superstar, and obviously, he's had the opportunity, like you said there, with certain times to have that send off, but also as well had some great stuff going through his career in recent years. It's just a shame, like you said, the wheels fell off when the Hurt Business broke up, and still to this day, I still stand by. I think it was a massive mistake. WWE left money on the table to a group that was clearly working, and Shelton Benjamin was one of the people that was a part of that. So it's a shame to see, but hopefully, obviously, Shelton's still going today. Fingers crossed he will find himself somewhere else to go. And Sam, welcome to this. Hope you're doing very well. This is Dolph Ziggler being fired was shocking. Really makes you realize that nobody is safe, and that's, I think, a feeling that unfortunately probably a lot of the roster must be a bit nervous about today. Obviously, feeling nervously checking their phones, hoping it's not going to be them. But when you see someone like a mainstay like Dolph Ziggler, it really does put that puts that morale in question.
Yeah, I mean, it does. But then I think like the blessing with people like Shelton and Dolph is that these guys can easily walk into other companies and be like great people to work with for up and coming talent, like especially with the likes of AEW, like because AEW have their dark and elevation. You stick them in a ring with someone experienced as Shelton Benjamin, Dolph Ziggler. It's some great experience for someone to get, man. So I'm not personally too worried about those two. I think those two will go on to do good things after WWE.
I'm sure they will indeed. There, and C-Nation said he thought Ziggler would stay in WWE until he retired. And honestly, it felt like that would be the case, but unfortunately, it is not. But we'll move on in the meantime, and we're no longer being able to walk with Elias or Ezekiel, which Elias did confirm today that he played Ezekiel. So for anyone that was wondering,
I knew it.
I know. I sensed that there was a bit of a similarity. But at the same time, yes, Elias, let's be fair, I mean, hasn't been on TV for a long time. I think the Ezekiel character did hurt the momentum. We never got to meet Elrod, but I just can't help but think back to Elias, for example, some of the early days. Obviously, go back to 2018, for example, New Orleans. Doing an open mic before WrestleMania, a night before, so in some bar. Obviously, was a part of the Undertaker, John Cena stuff that was going on as well at the time. It felt like his first year he could break through because he was someone that NXT didn't use, but when he came up, he knew how to work a crowd. He knew how to get heat. And he just was perfect for Monday Night Raw at that time. It's just a shame that momentum never continued. But Elias really, truly is a great character, in my opinion. I think someone that could be an asset to somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Great character. His in-ring work is great as well. Like some of the stuff that he does, like, and especially for the ring attire, and not forget this guy's wrestling in jeans and he's still being able to do some amazing stuff was really impressive. Here's a question for you. What was Elias's surname before he come up to the main roster?
Are you quizzing me by any chance?
I'm quizzing you here, kind of, because a lot of people remember.
Samson.
Ah, you son of a gun, you did get it. Yeah, no, it's one of them ones where you turn around and go, I don't know. I should know this, but yeah. It's like I said, it's just one of them things, man. He's such a great wrestler, and it's a shame, but yeah, like you said, his character work is fantastic, and he's someone that will excel wherever he goes. And it's shocked that he never reached heights that he should have got to, like his ability to get cheap heat by destroying local team and getting the fans to boo him, so the hero, like the face, could come out and save the day. It was just unreal. And like, at one point he was getting over her as well. And it's just, again, it's shame how it's weird how certain wrestlers you feel just don't work out like they're supposed to.
Absolutely, and I have to agree with that 100%. Then I've got to say, you know, this comment that's coming in, plot twist: Ezekiel shows up back on TV. Elias is never mentioned because he got released, not Ezekiel. If only that is the case. But you know, obviously, I believe Ezekiel's days are numbered after KO wrote him off of TV for good. But at the same time, like, yeah, I mean. It's one of them things that ultimately, end of the day, Elias is, you know, is a top talent and certainly would be a good use of someone somewhere else. I've seen someone suggest somewhere about a Jeff Jarrett segment could have been quite fun for AEW with guitars and stuff. But hey, it is what it is with that one. And just shout out to Ed Fries, by the way, did get the correct surname as well for Elias as well at that point in the comment section. But yeah, I mean. Hopefully all will be good going forward, but Elias has put a post out and he has looked back at his time in WWE quite fondly, which certainly is nice to see that this quickly he can look and appreciate the good work that he's done in the company. And it's just a shame that he didn't kick on further, but certainly someone to keep an eye out for going forward. And we mentioned about guitars. How can we not mention Rick Boogs? I know this one hit you a bit hard earlier on.
Yeah, this was more just of a case of that. I still remember when this guy was the Old Spice guy at WrestleMania one year, and that was kind of a shock in itself. But this guy, I think, just fell unfortunate to the fact that Nakamura got injured. I think if Nakamura hadn't got injured, they'd have probably carried that on a bit longer, and they might have built to something maybe. And I think Rick Boogs have had the opportunity to have a bit more screen time. So yeah, it's just. Unfortunately, injuries have cost him, I think.
Yeah, it's a shame. Obviously, that was the WrestleMania opener, wasn't it, for WrestleMania 38? Boogs done the quad in. I think it was the quad muscle that he did during that tag team match to put him out for well over 9 months. Came back, like you said, not paired with Shinsuke Nakamura, trying to do something different. But never really found a place creatively on Monday Night Raw or when he got moved over to SmackDown. And it just felt when the draft happened that there weren't going to be plans for him on SmackDown. And then you've not even got a main event to work on. It just felt like, okay, what are we going to do with Boogs? So it's a shame because the talent is there. The guy has got so much charisma. Obviously, I'm very fond of that Shinsuke Nakamura entrance as well. Particularly, I miss that. Obviously, got to see it live as well, which was really cool at the time when I went to Survivor Series a couple of years ago. But the guy is a talented dude. He is. I do think sometimes, like when he was doing, like had the power game, trying to stand out. I think that's what did the injury to him to begin with. I wanted to see him sort of take it back a bit, but at the same time. There is a unique offense within Rick Boogs. He offers something different to the table. And like you said, he can do great character work as well. Obviously, he said with the Old Spice commercials before he was actually brought in. So he brings something different. He brings something unique to the table. So he could be an asset to someone if they can find the right creative what to do with him.
Yeah, I mean, his vibe, like his energy gives me old Ultimate Warrior vibes. Like the guy, when he hits the ring, he just looks like he gave me Warrior vibes. Like he just looked like the guy could lift 500 pounds, no problem. And he'd do that, and then he'd run around the ring for 10 minutes and still not be out of gas. Do you know what I mean? He was just like a very bubbly and exciting character and personality. So yeah, hopefully, like I said, he can go on to do better things. I'm just trying to think in my brain for later where I think he would go, really.
Well, we have time until we can get to that area, so get your brain ticking for just a little while longer. But we will go to the chat. In the meantime, we've got a couple of comments that have come flying in here. So we've got Eric Douglas here wants Mustafa Ali to be a AEW World Champion. Certainly, if he was to join AEW, would see how they would position him going forward with that. But Zane here as well, saying WWE working on a deal to have Cristiano Ronaldo at the Crown Jewel show. I have seen those reports going around there, Zane. So we'll have to wait and see if it happens or not. But certainly, it would be a big high-profile name that would be in the audience if that was to be the case. It's something I mentioned TKO and Endeavor would be very happy with. Zane also going to say, I think Emma will return to Impact Wrestling as Tennille Dashwood. I hope so. Her run was great in Impact, which I have to agree with her run in Impact. Ken says, do we think there'll be more releases in the future? I mean, the future is a very long time, so unfortunately it leans towards the answer of yes, but whether there'll be more this evening or this afternoon, depending where you are in the world, maybe you're actually on tomorrow morning, who knows where you are in the world, but at the same time, we'll have to wait and see what will happen. But as I say, we're keeping you as up to date as best as we can at this moment. And Isano said here, I thought Elias should have won the IC title from Seth at Money in the Bank 2018. I have to agree with that. I think there was an opportunity to put him over at that time. Unfortunately, WWE didn't take it. And I think Seth went on to have a program with Dolph Ziggler after that. So it's unfortunate that didn't happen. We got mention of the name Emma, so let's bring her up next. And Emma, of course, Tennille Dashwood came back last year to WWE after being away for 5 years for like unfinished business. She debuted on FS1 as a open challenge opponent, I believe Emma was at that time for the champion at the time.
For Ronda Rousey, I believe, was it?
For Ronda Rousey, it was indeed, yeah. So, yeah, unfortunately, after that, Emma didn't do too much. But there was a period with her and Riddick Moss, and we will come to Riddick Moss shortly, where I did think to myself that they had something going on. They were starting to go towards the heel dynamic, and then they got traded to Raw, and then we didn't see it again. And I just feel that there could have been an opportunity for those two to do something fun and something fresh. I'm not saying it would have been main event worthy, but certainly could have been lower to certainly mid card, and certainly could have done something with Riddick Moss, particularly, and Emma at that time.
Yeah, I mean, Emma probably the biggest victim to poor creative in WWE ever after the whole Emma thing the first time round, when Emma Lena and how we sat there and waited 12 weeks for that, and then it all disappeared in 30 seconds, and then she got released from that. And yeah, I'm glad that she went on to Impact and had a better time in Impact. And yeah, I expect she'll do fine coming out of it. Do you know what I think these two really needed? And I can't believe WWE haven't done it since. Is another mixed match challenge, because there's a lot of couples on the roster that they could have done a really good mixed match challenge with, and they could have probably helped develop those two as a heel couple going forward.
Yeah, I think it would have been an ideal scenario, an ideal spot to do so. I completely agree that I actually enjoyed Mixed Match Challenge back in the day. I know it was a bit of just something background, if you want, not too important when it comes to the movie storytelling, but certainly I was enjoyed it. Thought it was good fun, like you say, for trying to make something different going forward coming out of it. Certainly Emma and Riddick Moss as a duo could have worked really, really well. It's a shame it didn't actually pan out. But obviously Riddick Moss, another one, obviously, to be released as well today. Obviously, these two, of course, are engaged. We saw their engagement photos put actually on the social medias in the last day or two. One thing I just want to, before we go to Riddick Moss, Emma today, just have to feel a bit sorry for her, because WWE did announce that Australia show, and of course she said a dream in a tweet, and then obviously had to quote tweet afterwards as well. Yeah, an hour later, well, I've been released, so it's not going to happen. So just the disappointment from that alone is not very nice.
The thing is, though, is depending on where Emma is come February time, if Emma isn't signed to anywhere, she could still make an appearance, and that's, as scummy as it sounds, that's something WWE would do, and they would get in local talent. Like, you imagine how big of a pop Rhea's going to get when Rhea goes back to Australia. I think if they brought in, say for instance, they did a open challenge with Rhea and had Emma come out as the one challenger, the crowd would pop hard for it. But like, as much as it's one of those, it would be a really good moment. It is unfortunately a scummy thing that WWE probably could do.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I would say in one way, yeah, I can agree with the word scummy in one way. In another way, though, obviously, it can be clever business depending on who comes in for the length of time they come in. Sometimes there is that thing of saying, well, hang on, there's a deal here that works for this show. And for example, imagine for the Australia, I'd love to see them bring the Iconics, even for one night only. Imagine Australia would lap that up. It would be great to see. But at the same time, also, you do feel very sorry for Emma at this particular time, because building towards it and hoping that she would have a second chance in WWE, it's not quite worked out. And the same with Riddick Moss, obviously. Madcap Moss, probably best known as, of course, he was doing Raw Underground at one point, but of course was the sidekick to Happy Corbin. Always had the punchline to the jokes a lot of the time, made Corbin laugh, even if it made viewers cry. But certainly one thing's for sure, the dedication to the character from Riddick Moss was always 100%. Certainly the material was not necessarily his, but he delivered it as well as it could be done. I always thought Riddick Moss was someone I actually thought that did pretty well in WWE for the time period he was on screen. In fact, when he had actually broke away from Corbin, or even when he was with Corbin, those first 6 months, I believe, of 2022, he was on every premium live event apart from WrestleMania in a match, and he'd won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal on the SmackDown. So he was clearly doing things right. He featured on WrestleMania, of course, being in Corbin's corner, but then obviously that was a losing effort for Corbin to Drew McIntyre. But certainly Moss had things going for him, but it didn't last, unfortunately.
Just as soon as he gets rid of his generic wrestling gear and stops looking like a creator wrestler off WWE 2K and gets some good looking gear, he's got Emma with him. Like, he has all the good things going for him, all the stuff that, I mean, for as much as I wasn't a big Madcap Moss fan, don't get me wrong, he's great in ring, wasn't a fan of the character, but everything that starts to make him look like a decent character in my eyes, I suppose, if you want to put it like that. Yeah. And all of a sudden he's gone, and it is a shame. But again, you don't know what this is the problem. Like with these releases, you don't know what it is. Like I've said for the longest time, that he was just generic wrestler 101 with his ring gear. He was nothing special. He just wore black trunks, black boots. There was nothing. He didn't do nothing to make himself stand out. And then as soon as he does, unfortunately, it's by the looks of it too little, too late. And unfortunately, he's now been released. So I'm sorry to see him go, but I reckon he'll be all right as well. I reckon he's destined for a really good run on the indie scene somewhere or in another company.
Certainly, I think if him and Emma have the potential to do what they look like they were going to start doing in WWE, I'd like to see it somewhere else. And I think they could be almost like Matt Cardona and Steph. I forget her indie name, but obviously was Perotta, I believe, in NXT. They're doing fantastic stuff on the indie scene right now, and obviously, I think that could be a rival couple, if you will. That could actually be something that could be big on the indie market. But certainly, Moss has taken it very well. By the way, go on.
We've just had another name added, but I don't know this one too well. Daniel MacArthur.
I recognize the name. Unfortunately, I can't picture the face. Unfortunately, at the minute, but certainly, I will keep an eye on.
And I will go on, Karen talking, and I'll try and get a picture of him.
Yeah, I just was to say, I think that would be a great power couple for Moss and Tennille Dashwood to go and do their thing. But Riddick Moss has been very good spirited online since, obviously, tweeted Sean Ross Sapp saying, well, hang on, I've been released. I didn't even answer the phone. I thought that was, he's trying to make the best of this situation. Of course, he's put some positive things as well, said it's been a hell of a ride for him in WWE. He's enjoyed every moment of it, and said he's graduated as well. So he's clearly looking at this and taking it with positivity, and hope for him that things would go well. I think the Moss potentially could be someone to keep an eye out for outside of WWE now, because you look at someone like, for example, Steve Cutler, who now is Steve Macklin in Impact, completely reinvented himself, big time deal.
Unreal.
I could see Moss doing something similar. I really can.
Yeah, I think if you get rid of the name, I'm not the biggest fan of Riddick Moss. Not a fan of Moss, and Riddick just sounds like you're trying to rip off Vin Diesel by the sounds of it.
Well, he'll be able to rechange that name now.
That is Daniel MacArthur. He was what was he? He was a shot put at the University of North Carolina. So he's one of these youth talents that WWE went on a stage of hiring that has just been released. I don't think he's ever had any screen time, really.
No, of course. It's a shame to see that the dream doesn't come true, but certainly wish him all the best going forward. Obviously, not too much we can add further. Of course, it's very sad to see, though, that he has been someone's added to the list. We'll go and talk about Aliyah in the meantime. Of course, she's not been on TV for nearly a year now, since obviously losing the Women's Tag Team Championships alongside Raquel Rodriguez. Aliyah, of course, has the fastest win in WWE SmackDown history, beating Natalya in 3.16 seconds. It got the t-shirt printed as well, 3:16 for Aliyah. Unfortunately, it will not be continuing. In a way, not so surprised, unfortunately, with this one. I was actually a fan of Aliyah. I thought that she got a lot of stick, actually, when it comes to social media, which I thought was a bit unjust. I know she's probably not the let's say she's been in NXT for a very, very long time, and you could turn around and say that maybe not world championship level, but certainly she had a role to play, I think, when it came to WWE's roster. And I think certainly there were times where it was crying out for someone to come in, and I think Aliyah could have filled a spot had it been required and needed.
Yeah, I mean, I remember her time in NXT, and she she never achieved anything or never had any major creative storylines. And I remember she survived the last round of cuts that WWE had, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she's on the main roster. She's in a tag team. She's winning tag team titles, and I'm like, maybe that like this. I thought she would be one that's just completely slipped under the radar. Like I thought she was going to be like she had the ability to just raise and go even higher and higher just because the amazing start that she'd had when she'd hit the main roster. Had some solid matches, and then it just disappeared. Like lost the tag team titles, and then never saw her again, and was forever stuck in limbo, or as we like to call it, catering. And yeah, it's sad. It was like I thought she would be one that really just sort of one of them ones that just comes from nowhere and just sets the women's division on fire, but it just never happened, unfortunately.
No, it didn't. And unfortunately for her now, not with WWE anymore. Hopefully, she will be able to find something in pastures new, but we'll have to wait and see what it will lead to. But we'll go to the comments very quickly. We've had a name suggestion there, which obviously we won't bring up. Zane, apologies, but we're not bringing that comment up for this particular video. Top Dollar is someone, though, that we know is released at this stage. Of course, there was the botch, obviously, on SmackDown, but it felt like Hit Row were brought back, and we should quote at the time while we're on air right now, B-Fab, Ashanti the Adonis, still in WWE, is just Top Dollar of Hit Row. Maybe there's plans in place for the other two. We'll have to wait and see. But for Top Dollar, clearly has come back. He's put in the work. Obviously, he lost a ton of weight as well. Looked in great shape. But obviously, there was a big botch, and Michael Cole gave him stick for it ever since. You do wonder. I mean, Hit Row as a group, as a gimmick, as an act, there was something different outside of the box there that just never really was explored with WWE. I mean, I go back to thinking, I mean, it was literally 2021 when they got released the last time, and obviously Swerve was with them at that point. I was literally on literally the night before going to go away on my honeymoon at this point, so it was a bit like, whoa, it was just reminds me of that time. And I just thought myself, this group at that moment, or when I learned about it, was thinking to myself, like, goodness, they had so much potential, yet they never got a chance to show it. And I feel like Hit Row have come back in, and I never expect them to win tag team championships or anything like that. I expect them to be a part of the roster. But I just felt to myself that there was something that you could do here with Hit Row. And obviously Top Dollar is someone that's, you know, very vocal with his rap game and stuff like that. And I thought they could have used more of that in WWE. I thought it could be, again, a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you take away everything that happened backstage and all the stuff that's supposed to have happened, if you look at the character itself, he gives me very Eddie Kingston vibes. Like he could be a very controversial figure if he wanted to. For me, though, Hit Row have never been the same without Swerve. When they came back, and it was kind of like Swerve was the focal point of that group, and without him, they kind of fell flat. And they probably would have benefited from having someone in there to replace Swerve, like I don't know, someone like Cedric Alexander, for example, someone who's young and can put on an attitude and like do what Swerve could do, really. And I think it probably would have got over a bit better, but they just seemed to be jobbers from the word go. And it was kind of like, I think they were like along the lines of one of the biggest shocks of Triple H's returns, really. Like you're kind of sitting there and wonder, like, without Swerve, why have you brought these back? Because this group for me kind of doesn't make sense. But then I suppose, hey, you need people on the roster that can beat, like people that can put other people over. I mean, the thing is, I think for these, it was all about the rapping, and like the rapping never got me over in NXT. So I don't know what the appeal is of it. Just to mention it as well, I believe Amari Miller's been released as well.
Okay, that's a shame to hear about Amari Miller. Then obviously someone that's not been on TV for quite a while, either for NXT. So again, wish her the best going forward. Yeah. She was quite good, so. Yeah.
I haven't confirmed that one, but it's like if you look at her on her Twitter, she's just put, "Don't worry about me. I'ma be all right because I got God all over my life." So it almost sounds like I've just been released kind of tweet, but obviously I'm waiting for confirmation for that one.
Well, we'll keep it on hold for the meantime, and hope that it's not what we expect it to be. But I mean, there will be a lot of things going on. Obviously, that's come from the source itself, but there are a lot of names going around on Twitter. We just mentioned to the comments now. We've seen a couple of people worried about certain people. There are people putting out fake accounts and fake tweets. There's a lot of things trending
Mm.
that shouldn't necessarily be trending. So we will try and give names that we know are cleared and verified. So even if a name is trending, try not to be concerned about a certain superstar until it actually becomes official and confirmed. Obviously, at this particular moment, those names have not been mentioned, of the ones that people are mentioning in the comments, but some that have been mentioned, unfortunately, which of course Nick is brought to us. And Nick, thank you for joining us. By the way, saying about Dana Brooke, Commander Aziz, Marseille, Ulysses Leon. We'll be mentioning all of those in a bit more very, very soon, but we'll have to wait and see what will happen going forward. But in the meantime, we'll quickly go through more of the names on the list. In fact, some now we'll be talking about of the more recent ones, if you want, from the NXT ranks of things, or the more later releases. Though a lot of those ones were done earlier in the day. Let's go through quickly then some of the ones that have been just coming through hot off the press. And Dana Brooke feels probably the most high profile of all these. Obviously, the longest reigning 24/7 champion of all time. Not the most reigns, but the longest run as champion. And certainly many years in WWE, I always thought put hard work in, always did her best to get better. You could see that she had the passion, the drive, the want to make this work. And unfortunately, just didn't really have anyone to get behind her enough. But it felt like with her recent run in NXT, I felt like the tide was slowly turning. I felt like things were starting to work for Dana Brooke in NXT. And it's a shame that WWE just thought they're going to cut the losses with this one.
Yeah, I remember when they brought her into the main roster with Charlotte as kind of like an understudy kind of PA kind of role for the main roster, and I thought she was great, and like it led on to like a kind of like a half-assed rivalry between Charlotte and her. And yeah, just unfortunately never took off for this. She had the ability. I know she had a couple of injuries in her time, but just one of them ones that you seem to think, what does she have to do? And like we saw how well Mandy Rose did going back down to NXT, winning that NXT Women's title, going on I think the longest title reign with the women's title in NXT at that point. And you sat there and thought, when Dana Brooke goes back down, you're like, okay, this is great. This is an opportunity for Dana Brooke to reinvent herself, start all over again, and you know what I mean, build herself back up and come back up. But I don't know, it's just not worked out for her, unfortunately. It's sad to see.
Absolutely, absolutely, indeed. There, hopefully for her, she'll come out the other side. I think Dana Brooke has got a lot of talent to offer, and I think certainly she will be. I think she'll be snapped up by somewhere, and I do think that she will go on to do great things outside of WWE. Eric says, "Someone please check on Leo." Of course, kicking it with Leo, fantastic YouTuber. Obviously, he probably will be very disappointed right now that Dana Brooke no longer with WWE, and Nick unhappy about it as well. I'll go then through to the next one on the list then. Well, let's talk about Mansoor, of course. I'll come up first quickly. Obviously, with Marseille as well, kind of probably will be talked together. We can do them individually because Mansoor obviously did have his own stint going on first, was the undefeated wrestler, I think, on main event or NXT, whichever way they were booking him at the time. Of course, he then went to Monday Night Raw, lost the first match. He never really felt high hopes that Mansoor was going to make it on his own, but of course was a part of the favorable gimmick of Maximum Male Models, which of course had its shelf life, unfortunately. WWE dropped it after WrestleMania with, of course, Maxine Dupree going off to be with the Alpha Academy, and of course Max Dupree going on to be what was betterly known as LA Knight, and obviously the second one being the right decision for sure for LA Knight. But for Mansoor, good in wrestler. I enjoyed Mansoor's work. Unfortunately, just never was, again, it just didn't get the break. It's with a lot of the ones we're going through there, just never really got that break.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I think a lot of people were expecting WWE were using Mansoor as a cheap plug to appeal to a certain demographic in another country, especially with the Saudi Arabia shows. It was kind of like he'd randomly be put on these shows as there you go, never lost in Saudi Arabia. But it, surprisingly enough, actually had in-ring ability, and it was really good stuff, like could wrestle. Again, but I just think it was the character. Like, it took him so long to find a character, and then when we finally hit that point where we get the Maximum Male Models, and they absolutely smash it out the park. And I said to you before we started the show, I think if we had got a tag team story between them and Pretty Deadly, I think you would have seen some fantastic stuff. And it's just a real shame that we're not going to get to see that now.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is a shame ultimately. In the day, and for me as well, I look back at Mansoor. Actually, we mentioned Mustafa Ali earlier in this video. I enjoyed their tag team run. I enjoyed what they did together when they was a duo.
Yes, I
But it
forgot
was
about
really
that. Yeah, that's a
entertaining.
great
For
one.
me, that was my favorite part of Mansoor in WWE, and I actually thought they could have done more with that. They didn't explore it enough. Instead, they did the cheap breakup angle. They went with the easy way out, in my opinion, with that one. It's a real shame. There is some talent in there, and same with Mace as well. Mace obviously was part of Retribution to begin with as well. Obviously, been done raw commentary at one point, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
He was before Brock put him through a table and then made him disappear.
Absolutely. So I mean, but the thing with Mason was another one. It was the drive, the desire to want to get better. And I always felt Jonesy always brought up this as well, and I have to agree with him when he said this. I mean, the facial expressions that he was used to make when he was a part with Retribution, obviously, then when he had the partnership with T-Bar afterwards as well, you can always see the menace that was in Mason. That he wanted to be an intimidating, dominating sort of monster type character. Again, just never got the rocket behind him, but certainly there was always that potential. And even when it comes to Maximum Models, again, he put 2 feet in. There was a lot of dedication to what he was doing.
Yeah, I mean, I was when him and Dijakovic were tagging together after the whole split with Retribution. Their dynamic, like, I thought was great. They just needed to lose the mask, really. I thought they were a big powerhouse tag team, kind of like what AOP were, kind of like what. Do you know what I mean? What any big tag team was, like the what do you call them? The Bludgeon Brothers, like just a big set of tag team guys that could have gone on to have some decent tag team runs, and all they needed was a reinvention just to get rid of the the Mace and the T-Bar names. I think they'd have been all right, but it just hadn't worked out for him. But then, like I said, he fell into the Maximum Male Models, and for as cringy and as like really awkward it was, he smashed it, man. And like, as cringy as his poses were, like, hey man, the guy knocked it out of the park, and I can't ask for more than that from someone. But yeah, it's a shame, really.
Quick question with the Maximum Male Models. Obviously, a lot of people said a lot of their stuff online was very entertaining. I must admit, I never really went out of my way to see stuff that wasn't on screen because I have quite a busy schedule at the moment outside of that. It's enough watching the television product at the moment for myself. But were WWE giving up on this act too soon? Was there more to give for the Maximum Male Models that could have been there for a weekly TV show?
I think there is. I think that. Do you remember how Breezango got themselves over when they were doing their segments on the .com website, and they were doing all that? They were doing that kind of stuff, and it was getting over. It's just a shame that for some reason they either stopped them from doing it or they just stopped doing it entirely. But I remember watching some of the stuff, and it is quite entertaining for as cheesy and as bad it is. But it's one of them ones where you're like, I can appreciate it because it makes you laugh, and like, you can't go wrong with it if it makes you laugh. So yeah, it's just a shame that it never got more. Never got bigger than what it probably could have been.
Yeah, it's a shame that it didn't work out, for him in the end. But unfortunately, it's another name on the list, and we have to hope everything be good for all these talents going forward. To become from On the Mark Wrestling Podcast in-house is sadly a lot of people lose their jobs, but most of them were not used on TV. So in a way, you can see the logic of why WWE has gone with some of these. And of course, yes, there is that scenario where if you're not on TV, I suppose there is a worry that couldn't be the case in the scenario. Nick suggesting a lot of names in the comments there, but at the same time, Nick, I'm not going to go with the people coming in and people coming out with the speculation stuff. We're sticking to the names that we do know on this video. Dabba Kato being another one, of course, also perhaps better known for main roster people as Commander Aziz, of course, alongside Apollo Crews. Was part of Raw Underground, which I thought was his probably most standout stuff. He was the guy that was undefeated in Raw Underground. Big dude, big monster. Felt like he was going to be a big deal. And then I think it was fed to Braun Strowman in about a couple of minutes on Monday Night Raw, and it kind of fell flat after that. Had the look, had everything to go with it, but unfortunately, just never had anything that connect the audience.
Yeah, I think he was another one that just fell victim to bad creative and not an under the character, really. Like you said, he'd done Raw Underground. He was undefeated. Hey, we even had Omos in Raw Underground, and he went on to do. So far, he's doing okay at the minute. Yeah, it's just a shame that they never really. Like, another one that unfortunately just has bad narrative, bad creative, didn't know what to do, got lumbered with Apollo Crews doing this whole Commander Aziz gig, and then didn't I think he ended up getting squashed by Omos, in fact, actually, in a match at some point, and it was kind of like you kind of took the mystique away from him when you done that, because he could have been this really big and empowering guy, and all you did was put him in the ring with the only person who's probably bigger than him and had the guy squash him, and it kind of ruined him.
It did, unfortunately, and of course, even he went after Apollo Crews, I believe, as well in NXT, and that didn't work out for him either. So he's kind of been lost in the shuffle for a long, long time now. It's a shame because even when he went back to NXT, I was like, "Here we go, we're going to get the rocket on this guy again," and unfortunately, it just never quite worked out. Look, I always had the Shanky section on this channel. I've always been a fan of Dancing Shanky. For those that have seen the old videos, you know my feelings on it. The dances with Samantha Irvin, definitely some top stuff. But look, end of the day, all kidding aside, it's not fun to see anyone lose their jobs. Shanky, obviously, someone today that he managed to be a part of the Superstar Spectacle, which is great for him. Obviously, the show that was in India last month, but unfortunately not with WWE now.
Yeah, it's do you know the problem is I'm going to remember Shanky just purely for the bad dancing. That's the one thing, I suppose. He's made a lasting impression on me for the worst thing possible, which is some terrible dancing. Again, just another guy that felt a bad creative. I mean, wasn't he paired up with
Jinder and Veer?
Jinder, yeah, and it was kind of like, yeah, you didn't do anything with him really. You had him lose. You had him dance with Samantha Irvin, and it was kind of like, it's a very one dynamic character, and if that's all he's going to do, then what else are you going to do with him? And yeah, just again another victim of poor creative.
Unfortunately, yes. And I mean, we have not really a lot to say with the last students, but we'll bring them up anyway. Quincy Miller, of course, better known as Quincy Elliott, didn't really get so much TV time on NXT, and neither really for Bryson Montana either. But we do wish them the very best of luck going forward and hope that they will be able to prosper now that they are on the indie scene. Of course, we're part of the NXT regime. So that's pretty much all of those from there. Nick is asking about Amari Miller. Cannot confirm any further at this moment.
Cannot confirm it. It's it's on Twitter. It's on an account that has her name, but it's not confirmed. So I have no idea if it is true or not. Like, the profile looks legitimate, like, unless someone has literally been copy and pasting her entire Twitter account, or sorry, X account. But again, can't confirm it because it's not from an official source or from, let's say, Sean Ross Sapp or any of the dirt sheets like that, Wrestle Talk or anything.
So we'll have to keep an eye out and see if anything more will come from that. But for now, look at it as maybe not for now. So we stick with no until we know yes. But that's all the news then that's been released that we've discussed then on this channel. We are near the hour mark of the video. Obviously, it's a bit of a weird topic, but obviously for the video, for supporting this channel, we appreciate everyone that's been with us. Make sure to like the video, share with a friend, and subscribe as well. There are a couple of other topics we want to talk about, and then we will do something at the end of the video a little bit unique that will be used for tomorrow's video. So if you want a sneak peek of tomorrow's video now, then you have the opportunity to stick around and see it live rather than seeing it edited and put out tomorrow. But we've been asked quickly, do we think that Kairi Sane will come to WWE? So we'll answer that question. The belief is yes, she's on her way to WWE. Believe that she is going to be coming back. She has some dates and still so basically she's got some dates she still needs to do that she's already got booked up.
She has to do, yeah.
Is it a date left now? So I mean, she had a couple before. Yeah. Yeah, so a date is left, and once she's done that, she should be free to join the company. Obviously, WWE, the hiring freeze is finished. Obviously, we're seeing people are coming in as well as now as some people that are going out. And is a reason potentially that people going out could be because of the fact that, I mean, WWE have record profits coming in with a lot of the shows they've done this year, different locations, but they are not going to be on Fox with SmackDown for much longer. They are moving to the USA Network next year. The 2024 is when the 5-year deal is up with Fox to go to the USA Network. I've seen some speculation because the USA has not been announced with Raw and NXT as of yet. People are speculating they could be moving. We'll have to wait and see if that will be the case or not. But SmackDown, we know, is joining the USA family, the USA Network. For the US viewers, they'll be very familiar of having Raw and NXT, as we said already. And then will be added to the NBC, will be specials as well, which I think will be very profitable for WWE. But first off, obviously not so big difference for us because obviously we're not in the States. But what do you take with SmackDown moving to the USA Network?
It's a hell of a lot of money, man. Like, I was shocked when they got $1 billion the last time round And the fact that, well, what is it, 1.4 billion now they're getting over 5 years. It's such a ridiculous amount of money for a TV show. Like, to think that, like, that's just for the rights to air the show on the channel. They don't get nothing else. Like, everything else is just WWE there. The merchandise at the events, and like the pay-per-view buys and the network sales and everything they get that they just push through it. Like, it's a crazy amount of money, man. But hey, good on them, man. If they can sit there and pull in 1.4 billion, then good on them, man. It's a business at the end of the day, and you can't make your money somehow. But yeah, if they're willing to pay 1.4 billion, it's an insane amount of money for 5 years worth of TV.
It is a high figure, of course, like you said, even higher than the Fox one there from a few years ago. And obviously, WWE does seem to pull in. And we mentioned the NBC specials there. Obviously, I imagine there'll be a big pull as well. Primetime TV to be an NBC, I think, will be a massive deal as well. Could this be a case of extra PLEs or PLEs that'll be on NBC rather than actually being on, or would it be like Saturday night's main event coming back like we used to have in the old days, like the 80s and early 90s, and I think was resurrected back in the mid noughties as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. It's a case of that. I hope they don't. I mean, I think that's only really going to affect the American fans when it comes to that kind of stuff. I think worldwide, we'll still get half of that stuff on the network. It's just like at the minute, it's the specials that we don't get. Like, I know Fox does a couple of specials with, I think it's Fox that does them at the minute. They've had some specials air that we don't get them over here. And like, there's no way for us to watch them, which I think is a shame, because like, I'd like to watch them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm interested to see these documentaries. Like, I've just finished watching Wrestlers on Netflix, and I'd like something else to watch, please. So hopefully, you never know. Like I said, as long as we get them over here as well, it's just a case of, it's one of the things in the US where you obviously will have to have the USA network to be able to watch those documentaries.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd be very keen on seeing those as well. Unfortunately, as you said, we don't have access to see them, but be interested to see what they'll do going forward with a big move there. And obviously, with Raw and NXT still need to be renegotiated for next year. We'll have to wait and see if they will remain also on the USN network. A big partnership that's worked for many, many years with WWE to be together. Well over 30 years or so they've done. They've been in some format with the USN network with Monday Night Raw, of course, and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see SmackDown being there as well. Was there before? Before it was on Tuesdays, but they have said it will remain Friday on the press release. So yeah, it will remain Friday night SmackDown on the USA Network. But as well as that, we'll talk about then Elimination Chamber, of course, is going to be in Australia, Perth, Australia. Perfect time of year to be having a show in Australia, by the way, because of course February is their summer. So it's great for them to go over that time. So, no one's going to need, if you're worried about the fact that they're going to need the raincoats out and stuff, no, not in Perth. It'll be as sunny as you like. And of course, to go through as well, I think that some of the talents you mentioned it earlier on, Rhea Ripley, of course, gets to perform in front of home crowd. Obviously, would be one of the big selling points, I imagine, for that show. Grayson Waller as well gets to be there. Wanting to WrestleMania for Australia. I'm sure he'll be a massive popular hit when he is performing on that show. I expect him to be in a chamber match, actually, if I'm going to be honest with you, at this early stage. Bronson Reed, another one to look out for as well when it comes to these shows. So yeah, it's great for them. Obviously, very sad, like we said, for the likes of Emma, not going to be able to be a part of this, obviously, after today. But WWE obviously will be hopefully pushing for the Australian market when it comes to this show, and hopefully it's going to be a big sellout. I think it's about 60 to 70,000 people that can be at this stadium show. So it's a big show for the Elimination Chamber going into WrestleMania.
I think you'll find as well people like Asuka, Shinsuke Nakamura, Kairi Sane, if they're in the company, if she's in the company at that time as well, because obviously the geographical location of where it'll be, it's quite accessible for people in Japan. So they'll have an influx of tourists as well, just for them people. So these are all kind of big names that are really going to appreciate doing that show. And yeah, it's exciting for Australia. The only thing I'm trying to work out is what time is it going to be on, over there compared to over here, because I'm like, I think that's going to be on at silly o'clock in the morning, like 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning for us. And I'm like, that's just going to be weird. I don't know how I feel about that.
To be fair, I've had to watch some shows with breakfast before, so I'm not too opposed to the idea of that. It's when they use it at silly o'clock in the morning where it's actually, I should be sleeping now, that I have a massive problem with it. But of course, it all depends on work as well and stuff like that. So it depends on the date the show will be. But hopefully, being a weekend should be kind enough. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it'll play out. But Carry on.
Just say compared to me, Perth's an 8-hour time difference. So if you're looking at, say, for instance, a 7 o'clock start time, that's going to be like 3 in the morning till like 5 or 6, and I'm like, that's even worse than what I currently watch, and that's bad enough.
Just a bit of breaking news, by the way. Nicole says that Amari is not gone. She's tweeted that she wasn't released, so that could be another tweet to look into. Nick has asked where the Royal Rumble is happening. It's happening in Florida. In fact, in Tampa, Florida. I think Tropicana Field is the actual destination in Tampa that it'll be taking place at. We also got a few that was close. Also, we got Nick saying maybe Emma could return at Elimination Chamber. You never know; it could happen. You could just because someone's gone today, they could come back at some point in the future in WWE. I know you've wanted this question answered as well. I've seen it a couple of times in there. What if we get Kyrie saying versus Io Sky versus Oscar at WrestleMania? Certainly would be an awesome triple threat match. Would not be against seeing it. I think it'd be pretty darn cool. This week, Carl says maybe at the Rumble, keep the eyes peeled there. Would definitely. OTM. They travel when it comes to premium live events or pay-per-views. They do the work. They are somewhere. What they're usually at a show somewhere. So Florida, would that be a first time for you, Carl, to go there to Florida? It'd be interesting to know your thoughts. And to be fair, for me, a dream is to go to a Royal Rumble one day. But I do think that Florida may be just out of reach for next year. But certainly, you never know. We just might be all in. You never know. That could be a potential. Anyway, we'll go back on point in the meantime. And NXSteve, have you got anything you'd like to add before we go to the closing moments of this video?
No, man. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's exciting times. Obviously, now with WWE kind of stretching out and going global with a lot of their pay-per-views, it's going to be interesting. Like, the thing that I think excites me most about it is to see the crowd dynamics, because at the minute, I still can't get over that show in Puerto Rico. I think that crowd was hot, and it was just amazing. Like when Bad Bunny come out and they're singing it like it's a concert. Man, one of the biggest moments of the year for me. I mean, obviously Money in the Bank is probably a close second, but like I'm really excited to where they go with these other countries now and see what kind of reaction they can get from certain people. Because let's say it's an exciting time for wrestling fans around the world with WWE going global.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look forward to seeing where the future destinations will be. And of course, being a bit biased, obviously now one in the UK every year. Of course, look, I'm not in the UK, but certainly is a potential to get to the UK. I'm excited to see what show we may get next year. And obviously, a bit of me wants high hopes. I want it to be a stadium show. I want it to be a SummerSlam or something like that. But of course, maybe I'm dreaming. But if
weather isn't on our side, unfortunately.
I don't think so, unfortunately. We're lucky enough for all in, though, which was good news. But realistically, what show do you reckon we could end up with next year? Another Money in the Bank, a Backlash? What do you reckon we get? Could maybe we get Fastlane next year?
I mean, to be fair, whatever we get isn't really going to be bad. It's just a case of, like, ideally, I think SummerSlam is the dream because of the weather over here. SummerSlam is probably the only viable one we can do because we don't have no stadiums that have got roofs. And April, it's probably going to pour it down with rain. So, yeah, SummerSlam is probably the dream. But they just need to not do what they did this year, and which was when you go to buy a ticket, go, oh, well, if you're coming to this show, you have to buy a ticket for SmackDown as well. Because that's where a lot of people got bumped last year. It was a case of, why do I have to buy 2 tickets? I only want to go to the pay-per-view. But yeah, as long as they don't do that again. But like I said, I think if they're going to pick a spot, West Ham Stadium in Stratford, it was where the Olympics were held. It's designed to cater to 60,000, 70,000 people every week. It's a major transport hub. West Ham, pull your finger out your butt and bid for SummerSlam.
I mean, I wouldn't be against it being a hammer, but that's just me as a West Ham fan. But Nick wants a UK WrestleMania for WrestleMania 41 being from London. We can only hope. It is all in the dream. Kyle has been to Florida 12 times as a kid. Always went to Disney. Love it. I absolutely love it. That's a great comment come through there. And obviously, I'm sure you enjoyed it if you went that many times. So that's good to see. Eric brought up a fantastic point because there is someone we have not discussed as of yet. And of course, it was one of the ones that came out whilst we were on air. Of course, Aliyah Leon. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I know that it's a difficult one for me to pronounce, unfortunately, but was a part of the tag team with Valentina Flores as well in NXT. It felt like for them that they were just, again, they broke through at a time when NXT kind of gave up on that tag team division. They were kind of like the team that was sort of like the novices when we had like Toxic Attraction and people like that. And I think by the time there actually was a chance where they could get a push, there was no longer women's tag team titles to go for. And I think, again, they just had to start again. So it's a shame to see what's happened to her. Hopefully, fingers crossed, again, it'll be brighter on the other side.
Yep, this is what happens when you bury your women's tag team division, unfortunately, and you combine the two sets of titles you did have into one, and then you only keep the one set on the main roster when there's a plethora of women on that and NXT roster that are sitting around doing nothing, unfortunately.
Absolutely, indeed, and have to agree with that wholeheartedly. We did get a question in from Nick asking about if Ronda Rousey's contract is ending in December. Heard that her tweet said that. Well, she's not with WWE now. I don't know if there's still any contract stuff going on. I'll be honest with you on that, Nick, but she has come away from WWE after the loss to Shayna Baszler at SummerSlam. So that I do know. Whether she's still being paid by WWE in the meantime, not sure. It's the wrong source to ask from that. Unfortunately, I can't give you that information. Yeah, I think that we are at the stage of this video. Then we'll ask for those that are still with us at this time. Thank you for everyone that's actually taking the time to be with us on this video as well. If you have enjoyed it, an hour and 10 minutes in, I'd like to think you have. If you're still here, hit the like button. Also to share with a friend and subscribe to the channel as well, especially if you are new here. And if you are sticking around for the rest of this video, you are going to be seeing tomorrow's video, today or Saturday's video, but you're going to see it now. You don't have to wait for me to release it. It's here and now, and it's unedited, which means anything can happen between us and you will see it. When it's edited, you probably won't. So exactly. Thankfully, we've not started that part of the recording just yet. So I know. We're professionals, remember, everybody. So what we're going to do, we are going to quickly
Losers.
Exactly. If you not at all. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through all the superstars that have been released, or we're going to go through the more high profile ones. One or two of them we can't really give too much information on, as we don't know so much about them. But the ones that we can, we are going to quickly go through where will they be next. That's pretty much what we're going to. It's a guessing game. It is all speculation. It is not legit. So that is what's going to happen. So from literally at the start of a few seconds time, we will be going into video mode for tomorrow. C Nation says we're killing two birds with one stone. Quite literally the case. And Kyle says, what a treat. But of course, if you want to like the video tomorrow as well, or Saturday, whenever it comes out, feel free to do so. It does appreciate and helps the channel massively. Anyway, so where will they be? Of course, unfortunately, WWE have released a ton of talent on Thursday, the 21st of September, 2023. It is a shame to see many people lose their jobs, but unfortunately for them, they will not be continuing WWE. But what we can speculate is potentially a brighter future. One thing for wrestling right now compared to many years previously, we know there are different places to go. There is a competitor like All Elite Wrestling with national TV time, with Dynamite, Collision, Rampage, all TV shows on weekly television. There are other places to go as well. Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, NWA. I mentioned AEW earlier with Ring of Honor. There is also the indie scene, which is thriving right now. Look at a Matt Cardona, who has made himself the king of the indies with all his championships in possession right now. And we look at someone like Blake Christian, who's called out Mustafa Ali, is holding a GCW championship as well. Wrestling is prospering, not just in WWE, but outside of it as well. So hopefully the wrestlers that have been released can land on their feet and a bright future is ahead of them. I'm going to speculate it, but I'm not going to speculate alone. I'm with my good friend to the side of me, the one, the only, Mr. NXSteve in the house. NXSteve, are you ready to do some speculation station and go through some wrestlers and see where they may be going?
Yeah, let's knock this out of the park and try and what's the one I'm trying to think of? Imagine these places that they'll actually end up in. So it'll be fun.
Absolutely. I believe there was a dance song in the mid noughties which was Destination Unknown. And that is quite literally the case right now. We're going to start off then with probably one of the hot topics coming off of the news
Isn't that
right
Ruby
now.
Soho's theme tune, by the way?
Pretty much. And she turned out all right. This is what I mean. You get unedited content here right now. Some of that probably won't make it. But at the same time, we will we'll probably compose ourselves as well. But yeah, hang on, we've got our comments come flying in. A good time to get a comment in. Thank you very much, by the way, C Nation. Always with the kind words there. We do appreciate the support. Always, every stream, C Nation is there with support, and we do appreciate it. So we'll begin then and talk about Mustafa Ali. Where do you see Mustafa Ali going?
Ideally, I think Impact. I think he has the possibility to be the next world champion for Impact. I think if someone like Rich Swann can go there and become world champion, I think Mustafa Ali, who has already has a plethora of talent when it comes to character-wise, I think he could absolutely go over there and tear it up. If not, I'd say free agent. That leaves him open to go into New Japan, everywhere, GCW, AEW, and just literally go across the world, tearing the world up.
I tell you what, wherever Mustafa Ali goes, I am watching. I am invested in Mustafa Ali as a character, as an in-ring performer. Mustafa Ali, for me, is honestly is someone that's not actually lived to the potential, and it's not through his talent, it's through the creative that he's been given. For me, I agree with you. Impact Wrestling would be a great destination to be a world champion. I could see him being in All Elite Wrestling. I can see him being a future international champion. Who knows, maybe even a world champion, but certainly I think that the world potentially could be about to benefit getting Mustafa Ali. And one thing I'd love to see him in is the best of the Super Juniors for New Japan Pro Wrestling. If he was in that tournament, I promise you, I'll be watching. The prospect of Ali being at Wrestle Kingdom would be incredible. So I will, though, stick my neck out and say that I think AEW will be Mustafa Ali's next home if I had to pick one, because I can't pick everywhere. I will pick one. So we'll move on in the meantime. We'll talk about Dolph Ziggler. I'm going to start off with this one. I think that he'll be going to AEW as well. A safe pair of hands, someone that's been in the business for many, many years. His brother is in All Elite Wrestling. He's probably looking for that push as well as being one of the wingmen, his brother, but perhaps maybe him and Dolph could be a future tag team championship contenders for the company.
Yeah, I'm pretty much going to go the same. I think if you're going to be future tag team champions, they could possibly then go on to have do you know what I mean? A brother versus brother feud. Like, I know obviously if we've got the Usos doing the same kind of thing at the minute, but I think Dolph going to AEW just makes sense just because of how they run Dark Elevation, having some young guys come in, wrestle someone the likes of Dolph Ziggler, who's been to Mania, done it all, got a world of experience. Can put over people, no problem. I think that's probably his best location for him to go.
Absolutely. How about Shelton Benjamin?
I think for me, it has to be AEW as well. I think this is just another experienced head that someone else you can put in a ring with some young guys, get some valuable experience with. I don't know if we were talking about it earlier or if I saw someone tweet it out. Someone said about him being a potential member of the Blackpool Combat Club. It's a good shout. I can see it happening. But like I said, I think AEW is probably his best bet going forward just because, like I said, he's an experienced head.
I think I saw the same tweet. I want to say that's a Sean Ross Swap tweet that came out earlier today. And I've got to say that whoever suggested that on his stream at the time, I think was hitting money or printing money, if you want, for that better term, because Shelton Benjamin will be fantastic for that group. He's sort of been it and done it with, Team Angle in the past, obviously, along with the likes of the Hurt Business as well. He'd be fantastic in the Blackpool Combat Club. But certainly, if I had to pick someone, he actually did New Japan the last time he left WWE. So I wouldn't be surprised if he went back to where he was previously. I would like to see Shelton Benjamin in Impact Wrestling, personally. I think there were some great matches he could do. His in-ring style would be so suitable for the X Division. Would be also quite a good contender for the world title division as well. I think he could someone that could finally win a world title. I'd like to personally see it. I think if he was to be in the AEW banner, I think he'd be more on the Ring of Honor side of things personally, with the younger talent you were mentioning too before. But if I had to pick one, I will go with Impact Wrestling. I'll go a bit outside the box because a part of my head says New Japan, but my heart says Impact Wrestling. Elias, someone obviously a great talker, obviously knows how to work a crowd. I think for me personally, although I think he would be able to work with any size of crowd, I do think Impact Wrestling would be the best destination for Elias purely because, again, I think he is someone that potentially could become a world champion down there. I think he has all the credentials to really hone his craft, use his character as an asset. Impact is very good at booking characters. They have a really, multi-layered roster, if you will, and I think that Elias certainly would fit in that land.
Yeah, I think that is probably the best shout for him. Like, if not somewhere like maybe an NWA, just because they tend to focus on a lot of character work as well. But I think Impact is probably the best one for him. I think he deserves the larger platform of the two. Like I said, I think he could achieve both for NWA and Impact and be world champion. So yeah, but I'm going to agree and I'm going to say Impact. I think his character work alone deserves to be an Impact.
How about Rick Boogs?
This is an NWA guy for me. I think that his character isn't final and finished. I think he's very one dynamic for me as well. I think that all I saw was screaming guy most of the time. I think if he works on that, he can. Do you know what I mean? He'll go places, but I think NWA is probably the best place at the minute. There is a pool of experienced talent there that he can work with, and it gives him time to work on and develop a character.
I really like that shout because I can see him in the Impact Zone. I see him there. He's another one of those where I just think, again, if you don't get Elias, you get Rick Boogs. I could just someone with a guitar I can see being an Impact, and I think Boogs certainly would fit that nature. Again, kind of with that wacky, like you said, character that can stand out in that company. But the NWA does seem that would have appeal for Rick Boogs, and obviously he's kind of got this, big muscular physique. I think they would push him as a top guy in NWA.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about someone that, what's best for someone. Do you want to be someone that's part of the roster? Do you want to be someone that could be treated as a big deal? And I think Boogs and NWA would be a big deal. So I think I'm going to have to agree with you. I think that perhaps maybe that could be the best place for Rick Boogs going forward.
Yeah, man.
Top Dollar. I personally don't see Top Dollar in one of the big wrestling companies. Sorry to say for him, but I do see him being on the indie scene. I think that for him, he's someone that could benefit going through a lot of different territories.
Yeah, I think that he's probably got his fingers in other pies outside of wrestling anyway. But I mean, if I was to pick a place, I'd probably say free agent. I'd probably say like you. He's going to bounce around the place. He's going to do appearances like, I don't know, down in OVW or something. Do you know what I mean? Just doing these smaller independent shows just to be kind of a credential, like a bigger name to draw in crowds for those smaller independent shows. I could be highly wrong, and he could go on to be a big Eddie Kingston, like I said in the other video we done. I think that he could go on and be he has the ability, I feel, to go on and be a similar kind of person to Eddie Kingston.
I mean, he's certainly definitely got the bars that could make him, the controversy that can go behind it as well. But like you said there, he seems to have the music industry that could be more of an appeal for him to going forward. And I think that's where I see more as well. And obviously that's why I think it'd be more independent-based wrestling rather than a promotion-based wrestling. But at the same time, whatever he does do, like you say, there is credentials there. And hopefully he'll be able to maximize and use the best of them wherever he does land. We'll talk about next then the combination really for me, because I'm going to put them together. So I'm going to put Emma's name up and then Riddick Moss. I see them together as a power couple in Impact Wrestling. Tennille Dashwood to return, Riddick Moss with a new name. I can see them being the Matt Cardona and Steph, I forget her surname, and I did forget her surname in the other video as well. But those two have been taking over the indie scene. Of course, Matt Cardona before was doing it with Chelsea Green. I think that Tennille Dashwood and Riddick Moss could really be the power couple of Impact Wrestling. And I think you've got other couples to work with in Impact as well, the likes of Frankie Kazarian and Tracy Brooks. You've got Eddie Edwards with Alicia as well. And I think that Riddick Moss, for me in particular, when I think about his name, I compare him to being someone that could reinvent himself and be like a Steve Macklin. Macklin was a forgotten son and was never expected to be what he's become. He's completely reinvented himself. And if a day comes, he's a free agent from Impact Wrestling, he's going to be wanted by the bigger boys once again. And I think that Riddick Moss and Emma as a dynamic duo could really make that happen.
See, you've made this hard for me now because you've bundled them together, because this isn't what I would have done. See, I'm going to go completely out and I'm going to say ROH just for the pure fact that as much as I love Tennille Dashwood in Impact, I think ROH needs another more established female wrestler, and it also then leads into AEW and the possibility of getting Saraya versus Tennille Dashwood, something obviously we haven't seen for a very long time from NXT. Like, those two obviously have history, and I'm just trying, like, because I've had to bundle them together, I'm trying to think how Riddick Moss would work in ROH. But then again, like I said, you don't put them in as a power couple. I could still see Riddick Moss going in and doing pure championship, do you know what I mean? Or just, do you know what I mean, being involved somewhere in ROH. But I'll say ROH for the pair of them.
I mean, you don't have to do the pair. What would you do
No,
alternative?
I'm gonna pair Riddick Moss. I would have sent to Impact just because I feel he will fare better in Impact than I think ROH. I think Riddick Moss has the potential to do some great character work, which is where I think he would excel well in Impact. But as like I said, if I bundled them together, pair of them in ROH. But if they're separately, Riddick in Impact, Tennille in ROH.
There you go. And what do we see for Aliyah?
And AEW, I think that she has enough ring experience. I just think that she needs to be part of a roster and needs to develop a character while still being relevant. And I think that going to Impact, I think she'd even get lost in the Impact roster. AEW again is the potential of ROH as well, so you've got some stuff there to do, but she needs to work on a character for me. And I think that where I've not seen nothing of a character in WWE, I'd rather put her in with ROH just because she can consistently wrestle well, and I think she'd excel well in those two companies because of that.
I have to 100% agree with you. A bit me can see her in the Impact Zone, but I think, like you said, though, I don't see her being a world champion there, and I think that then is that the best for Aliyah. As a speculation station, I can see Ring of Honor as well. I think, like you said, they're under the AEW banner. There's a ceiling to grow. Yes, it's like going through developmental again, ROH to go to AEW, but certainly to go to Ring of Honor right now, there are some great talents to work with. Obviously, Athena, being the world or has been a world champion there. Obviously, you've got the likes of Willow Nightingale as well. Great people to work with. So I think for Aliyah, that could be a great way to hone her craft and get more experience under the belt, and hopefully can get a big push going forward afterwards. Let's talk about Dana Brooke. For me, this one I do see being in the Impact Zone. I think Dana Brooke in Impact can work really, really well. And I think she could benefit going there and finally be a breakout star and finally become a champion.
Has the potential for me to be the Mickie James replacement in the Impact Zone.
Ooh.
I think that Dana has 10 years worth of experience. She has the ability to be a consistently strong female character. I think, like, if you was looking long term, Mickie James replacement in the Impact Zone.
There you go. I like that shout. What would you say then with Ulila Leon?
I think it's going to be a case of probably indie shows for a while. I'll be honest with you, I've not seen a lot of her. I'd probably say free agent for the time being, maybe making appearances on Dark Elevation and Dark, AEW Dark. Do you know what I mean? Those two shows, just getting some ring time and trying to work from there.
Absolutely. I was going to say AEW's banner as well. I'm going to say Ring of Honor for this one. I think that just a good place for her just to come in, do some, enhancement matches, get herself in the door and then see where it can lead to going forward after that. Dabba Kato.
Kind of a strange one. Like, I think I'd need to see more character development, but I'd still put him in Impact. I think he has the ability to, because of his size and stature, I can't off the top of my head think of a lot of guys that look like him in Impact, aside from people like Moose, like just a generically big guy. I think if you can give him a character that he can run with, I think he'd do well in Impact.
I'm going to go with
maybe NWA.
Would be a good shout as well there. I'm going to go for New Japan, and New Japan Strong, I think, will be the placement for him. I think, like you said, a big presence, someone that dominates, someone that I think for an audience like New Japan would look in awe at a guy like Dabba Kato. And I think he had potential where he could perhaps break through and break out. I think Japan would be a great spot for him if he was able to, end up being able to go over to there. Unfortunately for Shanky, I'm going to go with the Indies. I don't have a promotion at the moment for Shanky.
Yeah, he's like, he screams just independent runs. He's going to be a case of your local indie show saying appearance by former WWE star Shanky, and that's what it'll be, unfortunately, for the time being. Until, like I said, he stops dancing and he starts working on his wrestling. Do you know what I mean? Then maybe in the future, but yeah, indies for me as well.
Absolutely. Let's go with, you can put them together if you want, or you can have them separately, Mace and Mansoor, or Mansoor, depending on how you want to take it. But we'll start with Mace.
Again, I think these two, the pair of them two, you can put them both together because I think you get the same answer from me. Impact, I think that depending on what they decide to go with, if they went, for example, if they went with a maximum male models aesthetic, Impact, they would accelerate through. I think if they were going to reinvent themselves, that's where I'd find it hard to place them at the minute. For me, you could easily put Mansoor in ROH because he's a really good wrestler. Mace, again, there's a couple of places, but I think for safety reasons, I'd put both of them in Impact.
I don't have to agree with you. At the time I was going to say to myself, oh, I don't know, maybe like a Ring of Honor or somewhere like that. But now you mentioned Impact Wrestling. Obviously, like you said, it's the land of the gimmicks. It does so well. And these two could excel doing what they do in Impact Wrestling. So I would agree with you. And that's where I think I could see them being. Let's go to our chat and see what they've got to say before we wrap things up on this video. We've got obviously here... Tisbikal says Dolph to the comedy tour is what he says here.
He's a stand-up comedian, yeah.
He is a stand-up comedian indeed. A top lad, of course, in-house. Charlie, of course, been doing West Ham duty all night. Says, oh, snap, I didn't see this news at all. Yeah, it's been a very busy day in the wrestling world. Sadly, a lot of people losing their jobs, unfortunately, and he's shocked by some of the names on the list as well. And of course, Tom Collier, who's been very busy today in-house as well. And he actually says that 2K, thank you very much. It is great to have got over the 2K barrier, and you see you're doing very well on your channel yourself. Apparently, Dark and Dark Elevation also were cancelled earlier this year. I guess that's due to the Ring of Honor schedule coming in. So that's pretty much everything then for this particular video. If you've enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe as well. Make sure as well to drop a comment at the end of the video. If you're watching on delay, thank you for taking the time to watch this video as well. And NXT, before we finish off, any final words?
No, just, like, share, subscribe, and ring the damn bell. Yeah, man, all that good stuff.
Absolutely, indeed there. Thank you for watching. Take care. We'll see you next time here on SC Dub. So that's the end of that video. So yeah, we put that edited together and we'll get that out in the next day or so. But anything you'd like to talk about pro wrestling wise just before we wrap things up over the next couple of minutes?
Just to let you know that apparently there has been 2 more releases since. We have had Mr. Kevin Ventura Cortez has been released. And the other one, let me just find a name for you, is Alexis Gray, which I can't say I know off the top of my head. So give me 2 seconds. Female superstar by the looks of it. That would be this young lady here.
Okay.
Can't say I've seen her on screen time. So,
no,
yeah.
Unfortunately, the names are not familiar with me either, but I've seen the first one on TV.
Kevin Ventura, yeah, I've seen him. Yeah,
seen him on TV, but
it seems to be a lot of the developmental talent now that's getting their releases in a minute. So hopefully that's most of the main names done now, and we aren't going to see any more big name releases, hopefully.
No, fingers crossed we don't. But what we will say is, and we're going to wrap up the stream with this here. NXSteve, want to say a big thank you to you for being a part of this video. It's great to have you on, of course, on such short notice as well today. Obviously, seeing all this news break, we're like, what do we do? Well, we'll do a stream. We're here for everybody today. And of course, we hope everyone's enjoyed it despite the topic that's come through. Top lad with a comment in before we do wrap things up says Mason Mansoor team could do great things elsewhere. I think Mansoor could do something singles as well. And I think that's a great point. Mansoor was doing some great singles work as well before being a part of the Maximum Male model. So I totally agree with that comment. But look, it's a rough day for a lot of people in the wrestling community. Obviously, a lot of people are fans of these wrestlers. Of course, obviously, a lot of the wrestlers that are still in work at the moment, unfortunately, will be feeling a bit nervous as well. The morale, I'm sure, will be quite low. People didn't want to see this sort of thing happen. Probably were brought into WWE telling this sort of thing wouldn't happen. Of course, they were released or brought in a year or so ago, have been released again. Unfortunately, these things do happen. But one thing we will say, we wish all these talents the very, very best moving forward. They've entertained us on WWE for many moons, and we wish them all the best. Hopefully they land on their feet outside, because as we said just a short time ago, there are plenty of places to work, and hopefully a lot of them end up in such places we can still see them on a regular basis. The top lad says, good work. Need to get back and watch from the beginning now. Cheers, guys. Yes, we go for about an hour and a half. So we'll definitely keep you up to the late hours indeed. But thank you for dropping in anyway, and fantastic stuff. Make sure to subscribe to Hammer's Chat as well on YouTube. If you're a West Ham fan in particular, it's definitely worth doing so. And of course, the top lad as well there is where Charlie does some great stuff as well on his channel, Topical. And of course, there's a Top Mark as well, which is where you can get the wrestling content as well. But that's all from us. Thank you for watching. Look after yourselves and each other. NXSteve, you can go off and do your Arsenal stuff. We're going to celebrate as the mighty West Ham. But at the same time, look after yourselves and each other. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.